Night two of the NFL draft. Two more new Jets to talk about. Once again, filling a position of need and then going another direction with their third pick. We'll get into those picks, plus some of the bigger stories out of Green Bay tonight, including one big name quarterback who, as we start this record, is still on the board. We'll see if that's the case as we wrap things up. Tim McMaster here along with Zach Rosenblatt. This is the Flight Plan Podcast. If you are joining us at 10:37 Eastern time on Friday night during the NFL draft, you're the best. You guys rock. We appreciate you tuning in. Zach, I think we just jump right into it here because I know you have some writing to do. We'll get into the Jets picks, then we'll talk about Shedeur a little bit later. Jets pick second round, Mason Taylor, tight end, son of a Hall of Famer, Jason Taylor, who played for the Jets, youngest player in the draft at 20 years old. And the one thing where I want to start with this is last night, the big talk was Armand Membo, or do they go Warren? They go for the tackle instead of the tight end. And then here we are on day two, and there's a pretty good tight end still there for them to take. It worked out on paper.
Yeah, I mean, I think this working out this way was the case for picking an offensive tackle in the second round, because if you look at how the first round played out, all the top offensive tackles were drafted pretty much. Not many made it to the second round that would have been, okay, we can plug him in as a starter on day one. Whereas you flip it, Armand Membo is your starting right tackle on day one, and Mason Taylor is your starting tight end on day one. So I think because the board played out the way it did, and I actually thought Mason Taylor was a sneaky possibility at the end of the first, and I thought he would be gone before the Jets pick. That was a lot of the buzz. But they aced that pick. I mean, that's an A-plus pick. I think Nick Baumgartner, who was doing the grades, at least for some of the picks tonight, I don't know if he did all of them or not, but he did that pick. He gave it an A+. I tweeted out the blurb. He absolutely raved about him. He thinks has the potential to be like a star tight end. So this was both fills a need and it was good value. And I think those first two picks were kind of chalky, but there's nothing wrong with that. You've been doing this pod for a few years. The Jets haven't always, done like the thing.
Chalk's okay, man. Chalk's fine.
Okay.
Take the obvious guy that fits what you need and is talented. It doesn't have to be rocket science.
Yeah. And he's I think the numbers, if you just look at them on the surface, they don't look like that crazy. I think he only had like 500 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he was the most productive tight end in LSU history. He's a guy on the rise, great bloodlines. He's only 20 years old, very young. He's decent as a blocker. He's a guy that you don't need to take off the field. I think Dane Brugler compared him to Hunter Henry. Some cool stuff with Jason Taylor. We actually got to talk to Jason Taylor today, which was cool. We talked to Mason first, and they gave us Jason on a conference call. And it's funny. I didn't follow the Jets as closely, obviously, when he was on the team, and I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. But he was on them in 2010, and that was the last time they made the playoffs. That was the last time they made the playoffs. And Mason Taylor, I believe, was like 6 or 7 years old or something like that. And I found an old photo of him from when he was a kid, and he said how they used to go into Mason's like, I remember going into Central Park and running around with my dad. And there's all these old photos of him with like Jets paint on his face and Jets jersey and Jets hat. And it's always cool when you see it full circle. But at the same time, we're focusing on all those photos of him and that. But like he was a Dolphin for a long time. He was a Dolphin at heart. And so
it's funny surreal. His comments, because he really played it up, right? He's always going with the Jets. I didn't even remember he played for the Jets. I was like,
well, not only that, but
is a Miami Dolphin.
So I didn't know this before, but I guess he didn't really speak kindly, especially before he became a Jet. So you can't blame him for this because he was a Dolphin, which is a rival.
Right.
But I found this old article from the New York Post of like all these quotes of him talking about Jets fans in 2004, which again is like 6 years before he played for them. A bunch of them chanting their dumbass chant and all that other stuff, being ignorant fans. 2005, and want to live in New York in November, December, so they come down here and fill up our stadium. 2007, they suck too. They beat us. They'll go home happy, and their fans will be happy. They got 3 wins this year. 2009, a year before he becomes a Jet. Giants fans are a different type of people. Just put it that way. There's a little more class on the Giants side, and some Jets fans take the CL out of class, which is just funny now. But that's why, like, you put that next to what he said today, which he was asked about, like, is it going to be hard for you to root against the Dolphins. Like, will he be able to do that? And he's like, I played a long time with the Dolphins, but number one, I had the most success with the Jets, which is somebody pointed this out today. I guess the Dolphins haven't won a
True,
playoff game
right?
since like 2000. Dolphins haven't won a playoff game since like 2002 or something like that. And the Jets, he made the AFC Championship, but the Jets, he had more success with them. But yeah, then he's like, but I have to say, Jets, Jets. And Mason posted a video of the whole family. They had like a huge crowd there doing it. Really cool, like full circle moment, but just really an A+ pick. Like, I think he has the potential to be really good. I think he'll be the number 2 target in this offense as of right now. We'll address the 3rd round pick in a second. Like, there was a receiver like on the board that
that's not great, by the way. But
yeah, I mean, look, this is a young offense. Like, their entire offensive line is 27 or younger. Their new right tackle is only 21. You have Mason Taylor's only 20. Garrett Wilson's like your star and your leader, and he's like 23, 24. It's a young group. You have Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard as veterans. And yeah, the running back room, I mean, Braylon Allen, I think, is still only 21, maybe. So it's a very, very young offensive line, but there's a lot of potential in this group. And I really love what they did in the first 2 rounds. I just think they made the right moves. I think they've mostly gotten praise from what I've seen, like nationally. And yeah, Mason Taylor, I mean, we'll see what they pick on day 3 if they get any sneaky good picks, but I have a hard time thinking they're gonna make a pick that I'll be like, okay, that was a better pick than the Mason Taylor one, because I think he's gonna be really, really good.
So the positives, negatives, I was going through the beast. Big guy, still growing into his frame too, as a 20-year-old, and that speaks maybe to some of the negatives in the beast. So the other ones were dependable hands, obviously, and he's a really good blocker. Also, he's not just this one-dimensional pass catcher. He can block too. The weaknesses, bullied at the line by big defensive ends, which, if he's still growing, makes sense. And maybe grows into that. And then he doesn't make the explosive big play. He just makes like the consistent catch. And then there's a lack of touchdowns there. But like, I don't know, like it's a 2nd round tight end, right? Like it seems like a really good fit.
We talked about this yesterday. The history of the Jets at tight end is very bad. It's been since Dustin Keller, who played with Jason Taylor. It was the last time they had a like legitimately productive tight end. I'm a fan of Tyler Conklin, but he's not like a star. He was like fine. Mason Taylor has the potential to be more than that, and we'll see how their evaluation, how it plays out. It sounds like he's who they wanted the whole time. I mean, obviously they're going to say that after the fact, but I believe it in this case. Yeah, so I'm really intrigued by him, and even just like talking fantasy football, like I'd target him as a tight end in this draft, because I think Justin Fields is going to be throwing to the tight end a lot. This is going to be a run first team, but when they throw the ball, even if it's short range, like he's going to get a lot of targets, I think. So we'll see how it plays out, but you log him right in as the tight end 1, and you have Jeremy Ruckert and Stone Smart competing to be the 2nd tight end, and you feel a little bit better about the tight end room today than you did yesterday.
All right, and then 3rd round, a bit of a surprise. We'll get into like how the pick fits, but the reason I say a bit of a surprise is that Jalen Noel, wide receiver, who most people had like 2nd round grade on, top 5 in the class, was still sitting there for the Jets. And we've talked about the need for receivers. 10 receivers ended up going before Jalen Noel when he eventually went, I think, 79th. Yeah. So the Jets pass on him, which was clearly a position of need. And then they take Azaria. Thank you for passing along the pronunciation before we started this, Zach. Azaria.
I think Azaria.
Did I get it wrong anyway, even though you passed it?
Azaria, yeah.
Azaria. Okay. I don't know if you sent the right pronunciation. Anyway, Azaria Thomas, who physical cornerback. The one thing is they have Sauce, obviously, and they spent a good amount of money on a cornerback in free agency. So just kind of break this pick down.
Yeah. So, I mean, when they signed Brandon Stevens, I was under the impression he was going to play corner. This opens up the possibility you move him to safety. He does have some experience there. I can't say with certainty they're going to do that. Aaron Glenn didn't address that today. Maybe we'll ask him about that tomorrow at the end of the draft. But, once you get to the 3rd round, I don't blame them for just taking a guy who they think long term has a lot of potential. It's not as exciting as the first 2 picks, maybe, or especially the round 2 pick. Pass catchers are more fun than a corner or an offensive lineman. Ultimately, Jalen Noel is someone I would have picked personally. I just think he's going to be really, really good. But and he's going with Jaden Higgins in Houston, so they got both Iowa State guys, which is funny. By the way, yeah, the Seahawks just took Jalen Milroe, so Shador's still falling, and Milroe got picked ahead of him.
So that's 4 quarterbacks ahead of Shador.
He might make it out tonight, which is crazy. Anyway,
I thought he already would, though. When the Steelers didn't take him at 83, I didn't see another team.
I know
spend a pick on a quarterback. I'm surprised that the Seahawks.
We'll save this. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah, with Azaria, he, I think the knock against him is his time speed. He ran a 4.58, but we talked to Aaron Glenn. I know you said you were listening to the live broadcast The Athletic was doing. They were raving about this kid. The thing that Aaron Glenn kept emphasizing is, number one, his maybe his time speed's not good, but his play speed is what I look at, and his play speed is really good. And more than anything, Aaron Glenn likes corners that are aggressive at the line of scrimmage, and he thought he was one of the best at that in this class. That's why the Jets wanted him. And so, maybe you drafted a guy. Let's say they're not moving Brandon Stevens away from corner. You have Sauce, you have Brandon Stevens, you have Michael Carter II, and then you have Azaria at the 4th corner or whatever it is, getting some reps as a backup, special teams, things like that, and you develop him. I was reading Lance Zierlin's scouting report on NFL.com, and it does sound like he views him as someone who could develop. He's someone who needs seasoning, but he could become a good starter within 2 or 3 years. Maybe it's sooner than that. I don't know what the Jets' plans are for him. I've talked about this on here. I think they have, if not the best, one of the best defensive back coaching rooms in the NFL. When you combine Aaron Glenn, Chris Harris, and Dre Bly, I think that's just an elite group, and Steve Wilkes is a good coach himself. So they believe in their ability to develop defensive backs in particular. And so they drafted somebody who they had ranked really, really highly on their board, clearly higher than any of these receivers. Or maybe they didn't want to draft 3 offensive players in a row. I don't know. It's too early for me to assign a grade to this one because it threw me off a little bit, but I'm not down on it. I'm not hyped on it. I kind of understand it on the surface. They view him as someone who fits what they want out of the cornerback position. I'm just curious to see what they do with the whole Stevens of it all, because safety is a need. Andre Sisco is the only one I can say for sure will start next year. Do you move Stevens over there? Do you just keep him at corner? I don't know. He's played corner the last couple of years, and they really seem to like what he does. We'll say Azaria is kind of like Stevens in the way that he doesn't really get interceptions. Everything I've read is that he's more likely to prevent a catch from happening than get an interception, which is totally fine. You want to force turnovers, obviously, but you want corners who keep the ball from getting in the receiver's hands. I think one of the most impressive things about him is he had a really good season last year for a really bad Florida State team. And I think when you have a guy who keeps competing in that situation, that's a really good sign, especially, I think this season could get bumpy at times for the Jets in 2025. This is a rebuilding team with a lot of developmental guys. So that's promising. And I think he only gave up something like 14 or 17 catches all season. So Dane had him as a 2nd-round grade. I think Daniel Jeremiah had him around the same. You get him in the 3rd round. So in terms of purely that, it's good value. I would have prioritized. So another problem they ran into, and I don't know if they were considering this, but 6 defensive tackles I thought would have been good fits went off the board right before their pick.
Yeah, those are run. Yep.
Yeah, there's a run on DTs. And so I'm okay, so maybe they're not going defense. Darius Alexander, who went to the Giants, I thought was a real possibility. Once those guys all went, I was okay, maybe they go safety. I could see maybe edge rusher. There wasn't really anybody left that I was they should draft that guy. But Jalen Noel was the one I was get that guy and ask questions later. But in terms of who was available, I can kind of see the vision. But yeah, if fans are not excited about this one, I get it. But I do think he's going to be a good player down the line. I just don't know if it's in 2025.
The point that they made, Dane and Robert were making was the fit with Glenn and this staff and how he fits what the Lions were doing. It keeps going back to the Lions, and they weren't really concerned about the speed either because of the way he plays and how physical and aggressive a guy he is. And they just thought it all kind of made sense because of that. One question before we kind of move on to the other stuff from the chat. Kevin Stockslager, is it normal for Muji and Glenn to do a press conference halfway through the third round? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Usually this is kind of how it works when a team is done with its picks. I think one thing though, Zach, and you can speak to this, that it says is like they're not planning on trading back into the third round. They're probably done because they don't want to talk to you again.
Yeah. In all my time covering teams, I never had it where we get them and then something happens after the fact.
Right.
I'm sure it's happened before. I've just never seen it happen. So yeah, this generally does happen, especially on day 2. They'll come out after their 2 picks or however many picks they have, and that's it for the night. And day 3, we won't talk to them until the very end of the draft, also, or I should say until their last pick. So their last pick tomorrow, and let's hope they stick with it because I hate covering the 7th round if I don't have to. Like just sitting around waiting for the pick to happen, and it's just like rapid fire guys you've never heard of. But
hey, they took Mr.
Relevant last year, so we had to wait till the very, very end. But yeah, so they'll probably come out after their second, 6th round pick tomorrow, unless they plan on trading back into the 7th. But so far, Darren Muji has not made any draft trades, which his mentor George Payton was somebody who made a lot of trades. So that's been new, but I think they've just been happy with the guys that have been available or possibly available at their spots. And I should say, and Dan Botter just made me think of this with this comment about Stevens saying I wasn't excited with Stevens at CB2. It's a good pick. In a way, this also protects them against that not working out, or worst case scenario, Sauce contract doesn't work out.
Be a really high paid third corner.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah. But like, so if Stevens,
pick.
So if they aren't able to unlock whatever talent they see in Stevens this year, which is why they signed him to what they did, even though he had a bad year last year, then you have some protection now too at what Darren Muji labeled a premium position, which corner I think is now. So yeah, it makes sense when you consider all those factors. I just personally would have drafted Jalen Noel because I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, and it is crazy how far he dropped. I don't know if there was like something there that caused to happen, but for it wasn't just the Jets, right? Like not only did the Jets pass on him and take a different position, but lots of teams took other receivers instead of Noel. So it's just interesting. But he's
another quarterback just drafted by the Browns, Dylan Gabriel over Shedeur Sanders. Like I want to see where Dane has Dylan Gabriel because I don't think he has him that high. He's like a running quarterback, I believe. Dylan Gabriel, he has as the 9th quarterback.
It's getting to the point now where, to me, it doesn't make sense. Like it made sense for a while. Like teams bigger needs. Okay, we'll get a quarterback.
It feels like teams just straight up don't have Shedeur on their board.
Right. Right.
And my read of it without like knowing the inside of the draft rooms is that
we can just transition to this now too.
Yeah, we might as well. And then we can wrap up here. I think that maybe like while he's not a bad quarterback, because I don't think he's bad, I think he's an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's good enough to overcome the circus that comes with the Sanders family, the whole Sanders shtick. And I don't even think that I'm not even saying he's a bad kid or anything like that. I know there's been some reports about his interviews and maybe he's a little cocky, but you can get away with being cocky if you're really good. And it feels like these teams don't think it's worth all of that. Like that's just the vibe I get. Like I think a lot of teams just don't have him on their draft board because otherwise he would have been picked by now. Like the fact that Dylan Gabriel was picked before him, if you had said that at any point in this draft process, like Shedeur is being mocked as the number 1 guy in the draft as recently as like the end of the college football season. The Giants were seriously considering him at number 3 as recently as January. Like that's not that long ago. Like this probably is the biggest drop for somebody expected to go highly ever. Like somebody else would have better history knowledge on that, but I can't think of any situation that was this bad.
The fact that he was there too, like makes you think there wasn't internally this expectation. Right? Was he not there? No, he wasn't there, right?
No, he wasn't. He was doing his own. They're doing their own party, and they have like their own film. They have their own film crew. I actually heard something that apparently
which speaks to all of this, right?
Yeah, I mean they have their own film crew. And so like any footage that they were giving to the NFL was like footage that they were allowing them to see. Like it wasn't even like the NFL. Like at most of these in the houses, they have the NFL's in there or whatever, or ESPN's in there. The Sanders family is controlling all of that too. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like people just didn't want to deal with the drama. Like the fact that the Browns just picked Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round over Shedeur just like says everything you need to know. They were clearly never considering Shedeur Sanders, because if you were, you would have just picked them. So
because they had so many.
and the
Like
Raiders
the Browns
have
kept coming up, right? Like they were the first
Yeah.
pick of the second round.
It was them and the Raiders were the big ones. The Raiders have 2 picks coming up. If they don't pick them, then I think they would have passed on them like 5 times. Like,
and the Raiders are the organization that like historically invites the circus.
Well, and Tom Brady like trained with him a while back.
Yeah,
like, that's why everybody's
so maybe that's.
So we'll see. I mean, if he doesn't get through the end, maybe it would be them. But
34.
I don't know. At a certain point, should the Jets consider it? I mean, Shedeur Sanders in the 4th round is pretty good value. I mean, I know.
Well, the funny thing is, when they came up in the 3rd round, I almost texted you and was like, the old Jets would totally take Shedeur right here, but I don't think this regime would touch him.
Well, this is Podcast After Dark, so I can bring this up. Donald Trump had a post or whatever, saying how ridiculous it is that Shedeur Sanders hasn't been drafted, and how he's a great kid and his dad is great and blah blah blah. And so the joke in the Jets media room was, well, I wonder if Woody will want to appease his buddy and draft him. Ultimately, obviously, that's not what's happening. Like Woody's letting Aaron Glenn do his thing, but I don't know, man. I consider in the 4th round. I think he's I mean, at worst, he'll be a good backup in the NFL. Like the problem is the Jets want to do the whole move and silence thing, and he'd be the loudest 4th round pick of all time. So I don't know that they're going to do
wonder
it. But
the further back he goes, though, is it less of a cert? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there some modesty that then comes into this? As
well, I don't
hey,
think
man, you can't walk in to the beginning of training camp as a 5th round pick,
with your own cameras following you or something.
Yeah. All right. Other than Sanders on day 3, any other targets for the Jets?
Yeah, let me pull up. There's 5 picks left in the 3rd round.
So some of these guys could be off the board. That's
but let me pull up. Let's see. I mean, receiver would be the main position I want to look at if I was them, and defensive tackle. At receiver, Jalen Royals is one. Alec Ayumanor on Stanford. I'm intrigued by him. He's a big-bodied guy. He's a good run blocker. In the later rounds, Dante Thornton on Tennessee. He's 6'5" and runs a 4.4. Let's see here. Any of these other ones that I like. Torrey Horton from Colorado State. He's interesting. I know there's the guy from Georgia. I'm blanking on his. I think Arian Smith's his name. I think they hosted him for a top 30 visit. And then defensive tackle, Joshua Farmer from Florida State. Ty Hamilton from Ohio State. Deion Walker from Kentucky is kind of a freak athlete at his size. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins is somebody I've mocked to them a couple times. He was more of a sub package pass rusher, but he can play DT and D end, I think. We'll shout out Marissa. She would pound the table for Ty Felton, Botter says, Maryland alum. I mean, if they view Thomas as a corner, there's still some really good safeties that I like on the board. Billy Bowman, Xavier Watts, RJ Mickens, Jets ties. That'd be a cool one if they do that one. If they really want the vibes to be high, I would say that one would be fun. And then edge rusher, some of these. Kyle Kennard's one of the better pass rushers in this class. Jaw Joyner is interesting. Yeah, you can get some solid guys. I'm curious if they will consider drafting a kicker in the 6th round, because there are a couple draftable ones, and they could use a good kicker for once. So that'd be a fun one.
They never work out, though.
Kyle McCord still on the board. Still hope for Syracuse.
Does Kyle McCord go before Sanders?
Oh wow, that'd be wild. I mean, maybe.
I mean, at this point, anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think that's going to do it for us. Thank you for tuning in. We had good numbers. We got 80 people here tuning in to watch us live right now. That's
awesome.
That's great on a Friday night. I appreciate that. We will be back Monday to put a final bow on the entire draft and what they do on day 3 and all of that. But thanks to everybody for tuning in to the Flight Plan podcast. We'll talk to you all soon.